So today's video is going to be a mix video, and that's going to be a mixture between Purple Rain and Periwinkle from Arctic Fox. So a couple weeks ago I did a poll on my community tab on which mixture I should do. I had a variety of highly requested mixes and a few not as highly requested but still requested just to kind of mix it up and see what you guys wanted to see. I do really like getting your guys' feedback, so if you didn't get to participate in this poll, just keep your eyes peeled. I will try to keep continuously doing them. So I have my swatches labeled 1 through 9. That is not synonymous with hair levels. It is just to keep track of the hair as we go. So for my mix videos, when I'm doing a pastel dye mixed with a more pigmented dye, usually I'll only do 2 separate ratios, where I'll have more of one dye on the top and less of that dye on the bottom. But today, for some reason, I really just want to do 3 parts. So for this mixture today, we're going to go from darker to lighter. So this will have the most Purple Rain and this will have the least Purple Rain out of my mixtures. And for the first mixture, we're going to do a 4-to-1 ratio. So that is 4 parts of Periwinkle and 1 part of Purple Rain. I do just want to say that everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take dye differently. So your hair may not turn out like my swatches do. The only swatch of mine that is virgin hair is the black swatch. Usually virgin hair doesn't hold semi-permanent dyes as well. It'll wash out a lot faster usually. Sometimes it won't even take dye, as well as chemically altered hair. But either way, whether your hair is virgin or not, it's always best to do as much research as possible before dyeing your hair. The second ratio is going to be a 12-to-1 ratio, so that is 12 parts of Periwinkle and 1 part Purple Rain. This is going to sound kind of intense, but the last ratio is going to be 24-to-1. So that is 24 parts Periwinkle and 1 part Purple Rain. I usually use teaspoons and tablespoons and stuff when I'm measuring out, so it sounds like a lot, but if you're using smaller parts, it shouldn't be so bad. So now that these are all dyed, I'm going to let them sit for about 3 hours to let the hair fully absorb the dye. From there, I will rinse it out, and then when it's dry, I will meet you back here. So the top portion has more Purple Rain in it. I would say you can faintly see it on 3 and 4, and then you can really start to see it on number 5. As for the ends with more Periwinkle, I can kind of see something on number 5, but it doesn't really look like it's truly dyed until number 6 and onward. Periwinkle is a pastel blue, so as we get into the more periwinkle portions, it definitely cools the purple down a little bit. Because periwinkle is so pastel, I would say it does look the best on number 8, which was the lightest blonde swatch. Number 9 was the toned swatch beforehand, and it doesn't look bad, but I'm noticing that on the blonde swatch it just looks a little bit more saturated and bright. And then when we get to 6 and 7, even though you can see the dyes, it just looks a little less intentional. Since the Purple Rain is the more pigmented dye, I would say on these two, the top does look like the better option out of the 3 ratios. So for comparisons, I did obviously want to compare both Purple Rain and Periwinkle. We'll start with Purple Rain. This is comparable to number 9, number 8, number 7, number 6, and number 5. So Purple Rain by itself is a very dark, deep, and pigmented dye. So you can see on number 5, those were comparable, but the Purple Rain direct dye definitely dyed a lot more than when it was mixed with the pastel Periwinkle. In this case, it's almost like using Periwinkle as a tinted diluter, because even just adding a couple drops of the Purple Rain to the Periwinkle lightens it up quite a bit and cools it down. But even on the diluted section, you can just see how much warmer Purple Rain is by itself versus when it's mixed with Periwinkle. So next up would be Arctic Fox's Periwinkle. This is comparable to number 9, number 8, number 7, and number 6. So like I already said, Periwinkle is very pastel. Some people don't have a problem using Periwinkle on their hair, while other people struggle to get it to stick. So I'd move this down. As you can see on number 7 and 6, Periwinkle pretty much didn't really do anything. It did tone the blonde a slight bit. It looks a little bit more gray on number 7, but it's not really blue. So once we get down to the section that has more Periwinkle, you can see just how much Purple Rain really did still take over, even though it's still pretty cool toned. Periwinkle by itself is much more blue. If you are someone who struggles to get Periwinkle to work on your hair, you could always try adding maybe a drop of Poseidon or Purple Rain just to get a little bit more of an intense color that's still on the lighter side. It's not super pastel on the ends, but sometimes some hair just really won't take pastel colors. So this mix is a little bit interesting because, like I've been saying, the Periwinkle turned the Purple Rain a lot more cool toned. And as for cool toned purples, I technically have 2 that I've done, but one of them is People Eater from Good Die Young, and that one almost looks blue. It is so cool toned, so I probably won't compare that, but I will compare the other one I have, which is Manic Panic in the color Ultraviolet. So this is comparable to number 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 4. I will say that number 8 and 11 do look very similar. The top portion that has more Purple Rain does look a hair warmer than the direct dye portion for Ultraviolet, but then as we get down, so this has a lot more Periwinkle in it, right? It does look a little bit more of a blue versus the diluted Ultraviolet, but they're very, very similar. I'd say the center one too, this with more Periwinkle, looks a little bit more blue as well. But then on the direct dye, this looks a little bit more cool tone. So as we get down to the darker swatches, the Ultraviolet on the direct dye I would say these two look similar. Number 9 starts to look a little bit deeper than number 6, and then 8, 7 obviously are darker as well. I do believe it is the Periwinkle in the top mixture that keeps it from dyeing it so pigmented, because like you saw on the Purple Rain swatch, it definitely dyed on the top. But then as we get down the swatch for the diluted Ultraviolet, I would say that it doesn't take as well as these mixtures do, so having that bit of Purple Rain in there does help to keep it more saturated looking. But I will say both dyes, even though the Ultraviolet can dye these ones, I personally think that the light blonde swatch does look the best. Now that we've done our comparisons, let's get into the close-ups. And I do just want to say that from this point forward, everything will be filmed in natural lighting, including the pictures that you'll see at the very end. I hope this video helped. If you do have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do dyes that are not tested on animals. Thank you so much to my patrons, and thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.